person is sick, which is apparently going around, so we're all going to have to just project our voices as best we can. I used to cover Pat Summit at practice. I'm going to try to channel some Pat up here and really project. I am Maria Cornelius, the president of ETSBJ. We always combine our efforts with the League of Women Voters to have one event and make the most efficient use of our legislature's time. Very much appreciate Representative McKenzie, Representative Johnson, Senator Massey, Senator Briggs, and Representative Wright there, right beside Senator Massey, for coming. They always show up, they always come, and we really appreciate them being willing to do these events and talk to constituents. Scott Barker, co-founder of The Compass, taking over for Jesse Bayshark, who's out of town. He'll be your moderator. He will be asking questions of our legislators, and at the end, we will allow time for questions, so definitely people will be able to raise their hand and ask questions that they would like to ask. The whole format takes about an hour, and then if the legislators could stay for a few minutes, WATE is here, would love to get some interviews, so appreciate the media coming, and I'm going to turn this over to Scott.
Welcome everyone. I will try to project as well, so these guys won't have a problem. But, I'm a print journalist, I do have a problem. But anyway, typically these types of events happen before anything really happens in the legislature. It's all kind of a forward-looking thing. But I've heard something happen last week, so we're going to look back a little bit at the very beginning, and I'll go ahead and get started with, and I will try to vary the order in which I ask these questions, and I'm going to start with the first one with Representative McKenzie. And this question goes to everyone, though, so Senator Briggs has plenty of time to think about his answers. First, explain your vote on the Education Freedom Act, however you voted.
As you know, I was a hell no vote on the education voucher scam. And Representative White out of Memphis said, I wish they would stop calling it a voucher scam. And my reply to that is, I wish it wasn't a voucher scam. But that's exactly what it was. I sat on the House floor. I took someone from this neighborhood right here, within a 2-block radius. Average income, Vine got an F on the state rating, so they're a failing school. I disagree that they're a failing school. They're doing a lot of great things, but that's their grade. And I took a median citywide income. After all the takes and pooks of just providing a roof and clothing and a bite to eat, they had about $9,000 to $10,000 left. After the average cost of private schools here in Knox County, they would have to spend about $8,000 of that $9,000 on their education. So when someone sits here and says, we got to give our failing schools the chance and the choice, that's no choice. And that's a family of 4, median income for a family of 4 here in Knox County. So this was a horrible bill. This bill does not represent Tennesseans. And I'll close with this quote that appeared. Today, Tennessee legislators passed a voucher bill that I've been outspoken about since day one. This legislation is not conservative, fiscally responsible, or in the best interest of Tennessee families. It's a blatant abuse of taxpayer funds, a betrayal of our principles, and a handout to special interests at the expense of our community. And it goes on. This was written by the same person that introduced legislation to rename the airport after Donald J. Trump, that is one of the most conservative voting members in the General Assembly. Same person that wants to do mass deportation of undocumented workers. Even on this one, Todd Warner understands that this is horrible, does not represent Tennessee or Tennessee principles. So if I'm a little still emotional about it, I will be. If you talk to me next year, I will be. I will be until Tennesseans see that this is gonna break us 65%, their numbers say 65% of the people that take the vouchers are already in private schools. This is a scheme for the rich and almost rich to put a few dollars in their pocket. So, thank you.
All right, for I'm sure going to be a much different view. Representative Johnson.
You know, one of the reasons I ran for state house was because what I saw coming, the attacks on public education directed at privatizing our public schools. We have gone through the exact same playbook as every other state who was forcing this privatization. They start with charters. Well, they start by making schools look bad and say that they're failing. Our public schools are absolutely not failing. Our Tennessee legislature is failing our public schools. That's what's happening. And by defunding them and draining money off to charter schools and to vouchers, we have seen that the voucher students are performing worse in Tennessee than their public school peers. We also see that in every state in the country that has vouchers. If you look at any peer-reviewed study on vouchers in other states, voucher students perform worse than their public school peers. Typically a lot worse in math. In Tennessee, voucher students perform 20 points worse than public school students in math, which might be the reason folks are walking around saying, hold harmless, hold harmless. If you look at the fiscal note in the bill, as Rep. McKenzie said, it says 65% of the kids that will get vouchers never attended public school. They only ever went to private. Only 35% of the vouchers will be kids that switch from public to private. The fiscal note says this year, this coming next school year, TISA will be $45 million short in the funding because of the vouchers. Their fiscal note says TISA will be $45 million short. In the Hold Harmless Fund, there is $3.3 million. Now that might be some voucher math, but that's not math where I went to public school, because if 3.3 million is not gonna make up the 45 million that we are short. It does defund our public schools. This is about defunding our public schools. It's even more insidious than that. It's about teaching a whitewashed curriculum. It's about teaching a certain type of patriotism with a 1776 curriculum and things like that, not factual history. And how can you make public schools, I mean, the Republicans wrote the standards or approved the standards. They set the guidelines for teacher evaluations. They have set all the guidelines over the last 15 years, every one of them. They said, we've got to have this. We've got to be accountable for the taxpayers' money. But why for vouchers? Are they throwing every piece of accountability out the window? No, you don't have to hire certified teachers. Oh, teach whatever curriculum you want. Oh, take your test and we'll compare. You cannot compare two different tests from two schools or however many schools who are teaching different standards. Those cannot be accurately compared. It's statistically ignorant to think that you can compare two separate tests that test different standards. So we are taking public dollars completely unaccounted for. No accountability whatsoever, and just saying, well, I'm sure these folks will do better, even though nowhere in the country are they doing better. There's a goal here. It's not about our kids' education. If so, for the last 12 years, there wouldn't have been so many billionaires in Tennessee spending money to take out people like Frank Nicely, who was against vouchers, and all the other pro-education Republicans or pro-education Democrats they've tried to beat over the last 10 to 15 years. If they cared so much about kids, they'd be donating those millions to our schools, but they're not. They're trying to privatize those public schools. I'm against it. I will continue to fight it. We're going to see this year, we're going to see our schools lose money, no matter what they said. You've been lied to. And I think that a lot of members didn't read the bill. They trusted what their colleagues told them or what the governor told them, and they were lied to. I watched leadership stand up and run that bill and tell lie after lie. But the way they force us to talk about the bill, the Senate actually gets to air the bill and have deliberation and all of that. The House does not. The House says, you get 45 minutes and we get 45 minutes. And so I got 4.5 minutes to talk. And normally I would have asked about 3 questions. I would have asked about that hold harmless and all of this stuff, which I tried to ask about in committee, and the sponsor wouldn't answer the question. But if we ask a question, if we take 30 of our 4.5 minutes to ask a question, they will eat up the rest of our time, the 4 minutes in their response, so we don't get any more questions. So now we're end up just kind of making speeches. That's not deliberation. It's not debate. It's not what our forefathers intended. It's not how people find out what's in the bill as we're discussing it, which is really what all of that is about. So it's a terrible vote, and we're gonna change it.
Senator Massey.
Yes, thank you all for being here today. Obviously, this piece of legislation has a lot of passion on both sides. It's something that we have been discussing, as Representative Johnson said, for multiple years. So I think there's, obviously there were nuances of this bill, but the basic concept had been discussed. One of the things that, as many of y'all know, in the past, I had not voted for these type of bills. I had not really been against them, I just hadn't voted for them. I wanted to see increased funding in our public education. We are giving, since in the last 10 years now, we are giving $3 billion more. We've put $3 billion more annually just in state funds in public education. There's never enough money. There's never enough money for the roads, which I chair the Transportation Committee, for mental health, for education. There's never enough, but we have been making significant increases, and we're going to continue to make significant increases. I do think the TISA formula, there used to be a formula called BEP, Basic Education Plan. Nobody understood it. And I'm not on education, so I never was able to deep dive down into it, but I feel like the formula is more transparent now. So when I was on the campaign trail, I talked to people when I was at their doors. We polled on it this summer. So there's been lots of conversations. I'm glad we put it in special session so it could get, be the focus, because if it was during regular session, we'd have 100 bills going on at the same time. I read every email that came in to me. Obviously I wasn't able, I'm in meetings, so I wasn't able to answer all the phone calls, but I was talking to people, whether it was at church or whether it was out and about, because I do show up at about everything in Knoxville that I'm invited to if I'm in town. But I looked at all the details of the bill, and I did get my answers on, as Representative Johnson said, the hold harmless. It's actually the floor or the baseline. No school system will ever go before the floor of the number, which is figured on their average daily attendance this year. And so if it starts next year, it'll be figured on this year. That floor, if they lose 10 students or 100 students that choose to take the voucher, or the scholarship rather, they won't lose that funding in our school system if they won't go below that floor. If they have some students that move out of town, that's counted as disenrollment. They won't lose the money for that as far as the floor is concerned. And so we, I double checked on that. Oftentimes, I don't know if y'all know, but our teachers over at Tennessee School for the Deaf, that's considered a part of a special school district. that when the state teachers across the state get raises through the budget process, our teachers over at School for the Deaf haven't been eligible for those raises. I made sure that, that they are eligible for these bonuses. So I wanted to make sure, and I have a bill this year to try to fix that. So I looked at the details, I listened, it was a thoughtful decision. I'm not saying that, there's concerns on any bill, there's no such thing as a perfect bill. I do feel like we will contain it as far as, people cite Arizona and how the money has just gone out the roof. We are really good about containing our fiscal responsibility and watching our budgetary, are the funds when we're budgeting. Just because there is a quote, an automatic growth component if the scholarships are taken, certain amount of scholarships are taken, that doesn't mean we have to fund those slots. I mean, if their money is not available and the legislature doesn't appropriate to fund those slots, we don't have to. So you've got that component. And like I say, we're looking at a max of 20,000 students statewide out of 1 million students. That's 2%. And I feel like that our public schools here in Knox County are great. If my girls were still in K through 12, they would still be going to public education. They would still be going to West High School, which is where they graduated from. So, but I think different kids learn differently, and it's really up to the parents to choose how that's best for them to learn. Yes, not everybody would be able to afford Webb, but I'm not sure Webb's the best school in the area either. I mean, but they might be able to afford Catholic, so I think we just have to look at it individually, and I think, and that was really by looking, I got all my concerns answered, and that's why I voted for the bill.
Representative Wright.
Thank you. Again, Dave Wright. If it looks like we've been around for a long time, representing McKenzie, Senator Briggs, and others in the audience, we're sworn into Knox County Commission within the same hour. So we've been around for a while, and I think that to be important. It's not that history repeats itself, it's just that you need some background in what's going on. Really, I meant to say, standing up, thank you all for the invitation. There are dozens of things that we could be attending this weekend, but you all are one of only 2 that I'm doing.
Yes? Yeah.
So, yeah,
Representative Wright did vote for the bill. He looked at it, and he's had a tough couple of months. So, yeah.
All right, so Senator Briggs.
I'm going to keep it very brief. I listened to 5 hours of discussion on Thursday. Quite frankly, by the time we voted, I'd had it up to here. I'll yield my time to these folks that seem to know a whole lot more about it than I do. And I did read the bill, by the way. And I was a no vote.
All right,
Can I respond to something to that, or no? It's okay, not at all.
not now. You can't.
Yeah, I got you.
Right now, want to remind everybody, we kind of let everybody go on the first question because it was such an important vote. Try to be a little bit more concise on the
No
next ones,
problem.
okay? Thank you. The other controversial issue that was handled in the special session was immigration enforcement. Knox County has a large Hispanic population. What will you say to your Hispanic constituents about the future with, under this bill. And we'll start with Senator Briggs.
I would, we just had a presidential election, and one of the main issues in that presidential election, and the majority of the people in the United States of America said they wanted immigration laws enforced. I would say, want to know what I would say? I'd say obey the law. The second thing I would say that I did not like in the bill that we passed was the part that made it a felony for someone on city councils and county commissions if they voted contrary to what somebody thought was a sanctuary city or sanctuary county. Already in Tennessee law, we have immunity for votes on civil issues to legislators and county and city legislators also. And I have a bill that will be coming in the regular session that will be filed that will add immunity for votes, not enforcement, but votes on votes, dealing with law. A representative should have the right to vote his conscience and to vote the will of his constituents without it being criminal and going to prison up to, remember, this is a felony. This means prison over a year.
All right, Representative Wright.
Yes, look, I apologize. On immigration, take the word immigration out of what we're talking about. If you break the law, then that's rob a bank, beat up your spouse, break a law. There needs to be some outcome from that. We have enough trouble with our population without us, people in this room, being saddled with the population of the rest of the world.
Senator Baxter.
Yes, actually I had a great visit over at Centro Hispano the week before session, and we discussed parts of this bill. But I've told folks all along, I will fight to protect folks that are here legally. That whether I had folks that had a green card or were going through the citizenship process there at Sertoma when I ran Sertoma. And those folks are going by the books. They have come over legally. They are doing things the right way, which really, we talk about all of us were immigrants at one point, but we went through the process. They, the original people registered at Ellis Island. But there is a process. Every president in some form or fashion up until it seemed like the last one, President Obama, all of them have enforced immigration. And but people go, well, it's not an issue in Tennessee. Yes, it is. Do you know how many people are dying from fentanyl overdoses and the drugs that are being brought into our state? And as chair, people always think I chair the transportation committee, but it's the transportation and safety. That means highway patrol and homeland security is under the purveyance of my committee. And the drugs and the human trafficking that is coming through our state, because we're a crossroads, is affecting our citizens every day. I want our law enforcement to have tools to help stop and stem the tide of those kind of issues going through our state. And anything we can do to help with that, I support.
Representative Johnson.
This is not an immigration bill, it's a mass deportation bill. It's so ugly that it's gonna cause migrant workers that are here legally to reconsider living in Tennessee. In addition to the horror of separating families, this bill will be a self-inflicted wound to Tennessee businesses who need workers. Unfortunately, I was not allowed to ask a single question. Either in committee, I was on the immigration committee, and on the House floor had my hand raised the entire bill. I was on the list, but was never called on. The question I wanted to ask first was, has the Trump administration sent down guidance to the state on what they want us to do? I asked the sponsor after committee one day, and he said, no, they haven't. Why are we writing a bill before we even have the guidance of what they're gonna be asking us to do? I also had amendments to this bill that would say state won't pay for things that the federal government is responsible for. Our state is going to end up paying for this. There will be more focus on that than the crimes happening in our communities. If, with the way this is going to work, it's going to be a problem, and they're doing this without ever having the guidance in advance that this administration even is going to ask us to do. Why don't we wait for the guidance and then develop the bill? And they're putting the cart before the horse. We don't know what's gonna happen. And the good part is it is so unconstitutional that it's gonna be tossed, because our First Amendment is very clear on elected officials and their ability to serve their constituents. I jokingly put on social media the other day, my new conversation was, hey, Carol, you want to run for office? Well, I heard I can get 6 years in prison for voting my conscience or my district. Well, yeah, but it's only 6 years. This is where we are. They have actually put this in a bill. It is blatantly unconstitutional, and thank goodness it will be tossed.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you. I think we've covered a lot of it, but just to highlight a few things and then cover a few more. Senator Briggs and Representative Johnson's absolutely right. This makes no sense as far as our jobs. Similar to your jobs as journalists, it's in that same vein. We have a duty to represent our constituents to the best of our ability, and to make that a felony was just asinine. And as the majority leader, he never answered that question. He talked about you need to obey the law. You need to not vote things that are contrary to law. But when you do that, you don't get a go to jail ticket for voting that way. So that's one piece. They talk about all this is just saber rattling and just it's nonsense. They put $20 million. We're going to hire 4 people. I guess a boss with one of the governor's buddies and someone for each grand division to fix it. That's nothing, right? That's throwing that's a political position. That's all that is. We in Knox County, as Representative Wright and talked about earlier, when we first entered county commission, we were basically told that there is a consent order that we can't go above a certain number of prisoners in our local jail. That was one of the first things that happened. And that still sits because we hadn't expanded. But now we're going to bring in all these people to our jails. And we as a state, we have prisoners in the county jail system that we're paying a daily fee for. And Sheriff Spangler would tell you it's probably about a quarter of what it costs. But now we're going to add to that. We're going to potentially double that. We could double that today. If the sheriff's office wanted to go in and bring in all these undocumented workers, you could double or triple that today. Okay, now what? So it's an unfunded mandate, and think about the humanity of it all. Because that's going to happen. So some place is going to do it. While their child's at school, they're going to go home to nothing because their parents have been taken away. I agree. We need to fix our border. I agree. Criminals, U.S. or undocumented, need to pay the price, and undocumented, I agree. We need to process, especially the violent ones. But this is not the answer. This is all political because it was such a big issue. Brother, well, I got to jump on it. So this is, and we're out in front of it. We've got nothing from Washington. I had an amendment to basically say, didn't get to present it, let's ask the federal, DC, this is the federal, immigration is the federal, Tennessee doesn't have a border with another country. So they're coming from another state. This is a federal issue. bring the federal dollars down to support? Nothing. So, I don't know where this will go. It will end up in the lawsuit, and they'll end up losing it.
All right, State of the State address is coming up on the 10th. Governor Lee is going to be presenting his budget. Name one thing that you want to see in the budget and hear from Governor Lee on the 10th. And we'll start with Senator Massey.
More money for roads, road expansion, the cost of building roads has gone up exponentially. We've got more people moving to our state or coming through our state. We're within a day's drive of 70% of the population. The gas tax, which funds every bit of our road construction, maintenance, and every employee at TDOT, comes from the gas tax. It's a depleting revenue source because of the high mileage vehicles, the new cars that are coming out. So really, we have an unfair system. When the gas tax first started, everybody drove a car that got the basic same mileage, miles per gallon. Now you've got some people out driving a car that gets 12 miles per gallon, and you've got some people that get 50 miles per gallon. They're paying a whole lot less than this person. So that's, I was able to pass the Modernization Act a few years ago with 79% of the vote in both houses, bipartisan support. But that was just a bump in helping with some additional funding, because at that point there was still $30 billion in identified road expansion projects. So I think we've got to do some shorter term things, and people are looking at different components, but I've also got, there's a study group called TASER at the state. I've got a bill to ask them to do a more in-depth study to look at how do we need to restructure our funding for our infrastructure so it's not only sustainable but an appreciating revenue source so we can help meet the needs of our infrastructure in our state. But short term, I would love to see some additional funding in the budget for that. Obviously, I'm still working on the mental health hospital, but if we had some funding in that to figure out exactly how much that would cost, ultimate cost is, that would be great too. But if I had to pick one right now, I'd say roads, because the mental health hospital is going to take longer, so that's an effort I'm working on.
All right, Representative Wright.
So she got three. She had three, you said mental health.
And
She had
roads.
three, I'm gonna reduce it to two, but first I would like to pick on the transportation. What does government do for us? It does for us things that we individually can't do on our own. So roads, it's only 24 minutes for me to get here, according to MapQuest. To arrive at this location was 24 minutes. I couldn't afford to build the road to get me from there to here. So then that goes to the second part of the question about roads. Where's the money going to come from? You got to face the fact, if we improve roads, we're going to have to improve funding. And then since she had three choices and I only get two, the other deals with education. I heard on the floor of the House, base pay is going to be increased to $50,000. So that's my number two thing out of the governor's budget.
All right, Representative Johnson, what do you want to see or hear from the governor on the 10th?
It's a tricky question for me because, I mean, you want something that really might come out of his mouth, or you want what I want to hear, because what I would probably be kicking it old school and say Medicaid expansion for the 12th, 13th year. You know, I want to see wages increase. I want to see us do anything for Tennessee family, lowering grocery costs by taking the sales tax off groceries with a way to pay for it, because we're not paying as we go with a lot of these other things like vouchers. Democrats have a way to remove sales tax from groceries and pay for it. So, and paid family leave for everybody who works 40 hours in Tennessee, and childcare infrastructure and expanded pre-K. If you want to improve education, let's expand pre-K. These are things that Tennessee families want.
That was 6.
I was
know.
about to
And
say.
I still couldn't think of one,
We
is
talked,
why you
we talked
say.
a lot about education. Remember, you guys, I know you guys know how to count. So let's try to keep it down. Senator Briggs, what do you want to hear from the governor on the 10th?
It's already been covered, to have funding to start the planning for a state mental hospital in Knox County.
Representative McKenzie.
I would like for the governor to come out of his mouth that we would like to move the needle on education. And by that I mean, talk about $1 billion over. A lot of that's just cost of living increases and a little bit of expansion. And also getting our teachers just below poverty rate. But I would like for him to say that we want to go from 45th to 39th and be intentional about that.
In spending.
That one?
That's one. That's good. That's good.
You and Briggs are the only one that did
You
it right.
and Senator Briggs get the prize.
Yes, yes.
You get the gold star. Get the gold star.
There are too many needs.
Well,
Answering the question right.
in this one, this question is going to be a little different. I want you guys to think without practical considerations, without really political considerations, what is your fantasy bill? What would you like to see approved that if politics, funding, everything was off the table, what's your fantasy bill? And we'll start with Representative Wright.
I do not know that I would have a fantasy bill because just as we're here today listening, I don't really come up with things that I want to do out of my front pocket. Actually, let me be a little bit more specific on that. You'll notice that I'm seated beside between my political mom and my political brother.
I don't know what that says about me.
She's got at least 2 children. The thing that I'm trying to impress upon you is the fact that I believe we get out and talk to lots of people about lots of things that need to go on. And let me go back to something just to illustrate that is sort of, in a way, insignificant. If you rustle horses or steal cattle, you could be hanged. But in the process of farm products, if you steal a hive of bees, no one in law enforcement may have talked to you until this year, because it's illegal now to steal a hive of bees. So what we worry about in legislation has a lot to deal with what you immediately see. So, what I immediately see may not be important. What I need to immediately see is what's the boiling up of that then fantasy bill.
All right, Representative Johnson, what's your fantasy bill?
Well, this one thing's killing me. But I guess.
Well, the thing about it is, if I say you can have
Right,
unlimited,
no.
we'll be here tomorrow.
Right, I
This
get you.
church.
I get you, and so I've got this bill that is something they did in Colorado where every kid in K-12 can ask for counseling if they need it. They will be awarded 6 counseling sessions if, just by signing up on the website with their parents, then the therapist would decide if they need more sessions. But Colorado has a very high suicide rate with young people. And after this bill was enacted for a couple of years, for the first time in their history, their suicide rate is dropping. So, I'd love to see that, but what I would have to say, the bill is, Medicaid expansion. Because if we expanded Medicaid, we could build the mental hospital in Knoxville, we could do the program that I just mentioned, we could make sure everyone has access to affordable health care, and when you have access to affordable health care, you have access to mental health care, and Medicaid expansion in every single state that expanded has dropped their violent crime from between 19 to 29% within 3 years of passing Medicaid expansion. When you drop your violent crime by 19 to 29%, you save your state anywhere from $1 to $5 billion.
Senator Massey.
Well, as she says, I have my heart passion and my sign passion. But, and obviously, the infrastructure is my sign passion. So I'm still gonna have to go with my sign passion because I think it actually affects all 7 million Tennesseans plus the visitors to our state. If we could fix and figure out a sustainable, growing funding source for transportation, for our roads and infrastructure, both maintenance and expansion, and catch up and stay even on keeping up with those needs, that affects every Tennessean. So coming up with that formula and that funding stream, I'll be working on, but yes, that would have to be because it affects 7 million people in Tennessee.
All right, Senator Briggs, what would you like to see pushed through without consideration about politics or practicalities? What's your fantasy?
I would like to pass a Tennessee Right to Have Children and a Family Act, which basically separates the cultural war problem of abortion from medically necessary termination of pregnancies for the life and health of a woman, as well as maintaining her fertility. We need to completely separate medical issues from this contentious issue of abortion. Period.
Okay. Representative McKenzie.
You know, and I've been sitting trying to think of how to put this together in phrases, but what I really want is, you know, a committee with authority so that we be more humanistic as we deal with our felons. Folks that commit crimes, but committing a crime and going to some of these for-profit jails, and I tell you, I get emails weekly. They're horrific. These for-profit jails get paid to keep their prisoners in jail. So the gangs, the violence, and things you would not believe. And they know it. They know it, but it's the money making. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The longer they keep you in, the more they can build the state. So you go there. Our sentencing guidelines are, in a lot of areas, mean-spirited. I'm not talking about the murders. Everybody, well, what about? No, we're not talking about that. They go and they stay. That's not what we're talking about. Talking about marijuana charges. We're talking about maybe breaking and entering for a small thing. Again, but then they go and they do their time. They pay their debt to society. And we still treat them like subhuman individuals. They get out, they can't vote because they had a child before they went in and the child support's gone on. We're the only state in the nation that does that. And every year I present a bill, and every year it dies because our majority leader has just a craziness about it. And so he doesn't allow it to move. When I explain it to people, Republican, Democrat, black, white, they're like, yeah, that's not fair. But we have this just meanness about us. So to take that power away from one or two in the General Assembly that is blocking these things, just to, again, you commit the crime, you do the time. I'm with that. But when you get out, you've done your time. Let's get back to your family. Let's get back to being a full human being. And that doesn't happen in the state of Tennessee.
All right, Now, instead of these idiotic questions that I've come up with, we're going to ask people in the audience to ask questions, and go ahead and you were raising your hand before I even
She got it up there quick.
so your eagerness gets you the first question.
Yeah, thank you.
Go.
Oh, I'm sorry. You too.
Yeah, she beat you by.
So I have questions about several bills. I don't know if we'll get to ask them all, but I'm gonna start and direct my questions to Senator Briggs because he's the sponsor of two bills that I'm interested in. And I know you don't like numbers, but I don't know what else to call this. But this is the one that you sponsored with Representative Kiesling, and it's Senate Bill 0137, and it has to do with removing the opportunity for public comment.
Withdrawn.
Yes, okay, that's what I thought. It was withdrawn on the House side on the 27th. Thank you.
No, I withdrew it first.
Oh, you withdrew it
And then I
first.
talked to Representative Kiesling, and he withdrew sponsorship of it also.
Thank you. I wanted to confirm that. And the next bill another bill that you're sponsoring with Representative Rudd is SB 0365. And it also has to do with zoning. It makes certain changes to the powers and the duties of county and municipal boards of zoning appeals. And I have read the bill, and I'm not sure I really understand what it's trying to do. And so there are people that have speculated that it's trying to take away boards of zoning appeals, but I don't know that that's in this language. So could you tell us what the bill is supposed to accomplish?
That's Representative Rudd's bill. He asked me to be the co-sponsor. He'll run the bill. We'll see what's amended. If it passes the House, then we'll see what we have. It's not my bill either. Not primarily.
Can you tell me what its intention is?
Well, I don't know. People are always asking me, what does he think? What's his intention? What's the guy? I don't know. You have to ask them.
Okay, but your name's on it.
But no, I'm the Senate sponsor.
Yeah.
What that means is that I'll let him run the bill will be amended. I have no idea what the bill will be when it gets to the Senate. I'm not running it first. But,
Okay.
but to ask me what someone's thinking, I'm glad people don't know what I always think, but I don't know. You'll have to address that question. And I will make one comment. I said that to Mayor Kincannon in the city of Knoxville. They thought the bill was a pretty good bill. It provides more transparency. It does provide more paperwork. But the city of Knoxville, who has reviewed the bill, it came back with a positive comments from them.
Okay.
But I'll leave it there.
Contact
Because
him
I don't,
about it.
on these bills that someone else has, what I like to do, no surprises, I like to send the bill to whom it may involve for their comments. How do you feel about it? And let them make their comments, but the city of Knoxville gave a positive response to it.
So I assume that extra work has to do with providing written notification to people that
It provides more
whose appeals were
transparency.
denied.
It provides more transparency.
Okay. And then Scott's going to make me
Sorry,
sit down.
sorry, we
But
gotta
I
get
want to ask about the wetlands bill. Thank you.
Just a second.
Sure.
Let me speculate on land use for just a second, because Representative McKenzie and I sat on Knox County Commission for 8 years, for 10 years. The primary purpose of county commission, in my opinion, is to determine land use. And while I was there, and for a decade before, and I don't know how long since, I don't know that there's really a plan in Knox County.
For land use?
A real definitive, thought out,
We just passed
overall
the bill.
land use policy. So if there was a well thought out land use policy and it lays out rules, and then as a developer, if I want to be a developer, I go read that, and what I want to do does not fit into the plan, then there's no need to apply to the board or the county commission to get it changed, because the development doesn't fit inside the plan.
Dave, I was there. There are plenty of plans. We don't follow them.
That's
His point.
You actually hit the nail on the head. We don't follow them.
But the law
Yeah,
allows for appeals to, for instance, the Board of Zoning Appeals.
So maybe that's what this is about. I live in the rural part of East Knox County, and I'll put that up against the, let me do this sort of comical in a way. I represent all the cows in Knox County. But I only represent half the horses, because some equines are well-to-do. So if something does not fit in West Knox County, it probably is not going to, the plan's not going to be overridden. But I will take you into East Knox County and show you that the plan can exist and then it can be overridden. And that's not right. So you need a plan, as Representative Harmon said, need to follow it, and then there would be no need for a board or a commission to override it and allow something in some place where it wouldn't allow it in another place.
All right.
Totally,
Can I say one comment?
totally 100% speculation.
Can I get back a little bit of my time I've given away?
Without reading.
That's what, if you look at it, that's what the bill that we withdrew did. Is it said, if this is the plan, if this has been decided, you've got to stick to it, and it can't be changed at the county commission. They can vote the whole thing down, but you can't get this lobbying that goes on by the developers and other people to say, well, we're going to change what came out of the planning commission, and we're going to change what came out of advanced Knox.
Yeah, you're right, but the flip side of that is the developers.
Well, you can't have it both ways.
What?
Let's move on to another question.
Okay,
real quick.
thank
Go
you,
ahead.
thank you. My name is Elaine Colbert, by the way. My understanding of the fentanyl issue is that the majority of fentanyl comes through at regular ports of entry. Hispanic friends I have Hispanic friends whose school children text their parents like throughout the day because they're so worried their parents are going to be taken. And immigrants contribute to the country. They don't, and to our economy. That's been proven over and over. But anyway, there was a German couple here that was here illegally because their visa had expired. And a big letter with a lot of Republican legislators' names signed that list, going on about how they contributed to the economy, they paid taxes. It feels like these policies are against black and brown people and not, Western immigrants. So I don't know if that's a question, but.
I didn't hear a question there.
I
What,
didn't either.
do you have a question?
I think that's a correct statement.
Sounds
You
correct
know,
to me.
honestly, that's what we're dealing with. When the president makes a statement about undocumented workers, he's talking about a specific person, and that person does not come from Europe. You know, when he talks about eating cats and eating dogs, he's talking about a specific person. And so that is what has permeated into our thinking. You know, here's what I'll say. The Speaker's District, which has Monterey in it, good luck harvesting them those mushrooms this next year.
Granger County.
Granger County, good luck getting those tomatoes picked. Good luck. It's not going to happen. So, and that's what's so interesting. That's what I say. This conversation, we need to get away from this is a Republican, and I hate that the votes go that way because it can't. The Speaker of the House can't say his constituents want that. It can't happen. Jeremy Faison cannot say that his constituents want all the workers to go away from his county and his district. But so this isn't, to me, this is not a Republican and a Democratic issue. This is an issue about what do we want our country to look like? We can't unpour this glass of milk. We have thousands of people here that are here illegally. How do we manage that? Okay, we can siphon off the infiltration. Let's do that. But how do we manage the folks like you just said, who kids are in school texting their mom and dad every hour because they're scared of them. What we're gonna do is take the cell phone away from them this particular year. You'll see that legislation come. So this is.
And then they'll be more traumatized. I do want to say to that too, just before special session, it was Thursday night at the Beck Center. Rep. McKenzie, Rep. Camper and I did a forum to talk to people about the special session, and there were so many teachers there that taught ELL. And they were just telling me, tears in their eyes, how scared their kids are all day long at school. You can't learn when you're that terrified and traumatized. And part of it, some of them don't come because the fear is, while I'm at school, they're gonna take mom and dad. So they stay home because they don't want to be separated. And what these kids are going through is just horrifying. They don't know if it's gonna happen or not, but they know that it could happen. They know that are people out there that literally are talking about taking kids away, and now that they're allowed to go into schools or go into hospitals. And so, it's traumatized a community that we're all connected to. And the thing that really gets me is this is a federal issue. As a matter of fact, the sponsor of the immigration bill during special session in the House told one of our members who is a naturalized citizen that, yeah, she's right, Fred Thompson helped her get her citizenship. And so he was telling her, yes, this should be a federal issue. We shouldn't be doing it, we need to give it to the Fred Thompsons, and while he's trying to pass a bill that's doing what this federal thing. And so the hypocrisy of it all is really something, but people are scared, and children are scared. For 30 years, we have been able, we can pass bipartisan legislation that creates a path to citizenship. We already have laws in this country that make sure immigrants who are here that commit violent crimes and things like that have to go back. But let's create a system for folks who are doing the right things to come in, and so that's what will eliminate the problem.
So we got one more question right here, and that'll be because we promised the legislators that they'd get out of here at a certain time, and they're about running up against it last week.
Okay, I'll talk loudly and
And one thing before you go, remember they're going to be here. You can talk to them after the formal part is ended. So.
okay. There are several wetland bills that have been introduced as caption bills. And we know that wetlands are a complex hydrological system with both surface and subsurface water. We also know that our soil here in Tennessee is primarily limestone, so we have primarily subsurface water relationship with the wetlands. These bills are addressing that wetlands don't count unless there's a surface connection. And they refer back to the Supreme Court ruling that states that EPA can only manage and regulate surface wetlands. And so essentially, the majority of our wetlands, if these bills are passed, would be counted as being developable. I would like to know how an audience can keep track of these bills, and I would also like to know if any of you have a strong position on retaining wetlands.
Well, to keep track of the bills, capital with a capitol.tn.gov. And you can enter in, you can search bills by index or by subject matter, and then you can there's a place where you can keep up with the progress on those bills. So we actually have, I think, one of the most transparent legislative websites in the country. You can go watch any of the hearings, the videos. You can watch them live, or you can watch them in the middle of the night if you can't sleep. And it'll put you to sleep. No, but those bills will go through agriculture, commerce. So that is not a committee I'm on, so I'm not really up to date on that. Any information you can give me more on that is appreciated.
I'd like to bring up that the Senate is probably different. They do a lot of things differently than the House. In the House, You talked about a caption bill. If it's a caption bill, you will never know until that bill is in committee what they're running. Because it's an amendment, basically they do an amendment that writes the bill. And they promised us last session that they would put amendments on the website in advance. They never, ever did. So until they vote yes on the amendment, then they might put it on the website. And it's not definite even then. So that is a serious problem, because our website is great at following bills that go along as written. But in the House, an amended bill, you will not see the amendment until it's passed in the first committee, and if then.
That's my point.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
very, it's
that's my
a
point,
huge
because
problem.
This was introduced last year, and it was such a hard scramble to figure out what was going on.
And I have a hard line on absolutely protecting the wetlands.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming. If you appreciate all of you. One or two speak with one of the legislators individually, several of them will hang around, others may need to get somewhere. I also want to thank WATE and WVLT for coming. We appreciate the media coverage and appreciate the civic engagement. Please eat the food and drink the coffee so we don't have